You know, some true stories are just so packed with twists and turns, they feel like they came straight out of a Hollywood script. Well, the case of Sharon Marshall, this one is all too real. Okay, let's dive into this truly unbelievable story.
So let's start with a young woman who, honestly, had the entire world at her feet. Sharon Marshall was brilliant. We're talking a lieutenant colonel in the ROTC who earned a full-ride scholarship to Georgia Tech. Her dream? To study aerospace engineering and work for NASA. But just a few years later, that incredible dream, it came to a violent, tragic end. At only 20 years old, Sharon was found dead, the victim of what looked like a simple hit-and-run accident. A promising life just gone, or so it seemed. You see, her death wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a mystery that would take decades to unravel, and it raises this almost impossible question. How can a person's entire life, everything you think you know about them, be a complete and total lie?
To really understand this puzzle, we have to look at the life Sharon was living right before she died. And it was a life that was completely split in two, between this public image of success and a very, very different private reality.
Yeah, the contrast it's just stark. Publicly, you had Sharon, the high-achieving student, on her way to greatness. But privately, she'd actually turned down that scholarship. She became pregnant, gave the baby up for adoption, and then moved in with a much older man named Franklin Floyd, supporting them by working as an exotic dancer. And that brings us to April of 1990. By this point, Sharon is a mother to a second child, a little boy named Michael, and she's found unconscious on the shoulder of a highway. The official story? A tragic hit and run. She was rushed to the hospital, but she would never wake up. But right away, the doctor who treated her was suspicious. He noticed old bruises all over her body and made this absolutely chilling statement. He classified her death not as an accident, but as a homicide. And this was the first real sign that something was very, very wrong here. In this second major red flag, it was this number, $80,000. That was the value of a life insurance policy that Franklin Floyd had taken out on Sharon just a few months before she died. And get this, he was really, really eager to collect it. And Floyd's attempt to cash in on that policy? Well, that was the mistake that would be his complete undoing. It was the one single act that ripped the mask off and exposed the monster that was hiding in plain sight this whole time. You see, Floyd had been living under different names for years, but to get that insurance money, he had to use his real one. And with that name, Franklin Delano Floyd, the authorities unlocked a criminal past that was just horrifying. And when I say horrifying, I mean it. This wasn't a guy who just suddenly turned to crime. Oh no, he was a violent predator long before he ever met Sharon. I mean, he'd been abducting children and escaping justice since 1962. He was already a federal fugitive when he walked into Sharon's life. Now, with Floyd in prison for all his old crimes, you'd think the story might end there, right? But it was only getting darker. His obsession now shifted to Sharon's young son, Michael, who'd been placed in foster care. Floyd kept insisting he was Michael's father, and he was even allowed prison visits. But when the boy seemed hesitant around him, a DNA test was ordered. The result was definitive, 0% probability. Floyd was not his biological father. His legal connection to that little boy was completely severed. So what did Floyd do as soon as he was released? He took Michael by force. In 1994, he walked right into Michael's elementary school, pulled a gun on the principal, and kidnapped the 6-year-old boy, just vanishing without a trace. Floyd was captured 2 months later, but Michael was gone. When the police asked where the boy was, this was his bone-chilling response. He showed absolutely no remorse, offered no answers. Michael was never seen again. So for years, the mysteries just kept piling up. What happened to Michael? And who really killed Sharon? Well, the big break in the case came from the most unexpected place: a stolen truck, an auction, and a forgotten envelope. Inside a truck that Floyd had stolen and then abandoned, a mechanic found an envelope. Inside were 97 photographs. Some showed a tortured woman, who was identified as Cheryl Camesso, a friend of Sharon's who had vanished a year before her. Those photos actually led police to her remains. But there was something else, much older photos, showing Floyd assaulting a very, very young, unidentified girl. So these photos put Floyd on death row for Cheryl's murder, but they opened up a brand new, even more disturbing question. They had a picture of another victim, a little girl, but no name, no identity. Who was she? It would take all the way until 2014 for investigators to finally put the last, most horrifying piece of this puzzle into place. And the final answer? It started with another woman, another family that was destroyed by Floyd way back in the 1970s.
See, a woman named Sandy Chipman had briefly married Floyd, who was, of course, using an alias. When she had to serve a 30-day jail sentence, she came home to an empty house. Floyd had taken her 4 children and just disappeared. Over the years, she managed to locate 3 of them, but her oldest daughter, Suzanne, remained missing.
And here it is, the unthinkable truth. The brilliant young woman everyone knew as Sharon Marshall, she was Sandy Chipman's long-lost daughter, Suzanne Savarkis. The little girl in those old, horrific photos was her.
The whole thing was so twisted that investigators actually had to create a new term to describe the monstrous role Floyd played in her life. He was her stepfather, who became her kidnapper, who raised her as his daughter, only to later force her to become his wife, and was, in the end, her killer. When you look at her life like this, chronologically, it just puts everything into horrifying perspective. Her entire identity, from childhood on, was a complete lie, constructed by her abuser. Her life was stolen from her at 6 years old, and every single moment after that was controlled by him, right up to her murder and then the murder of her son.
Franklin Floyd is on death row today for the murder of Cheryl Camesso. He did confess to killing Michael, but was never tried for it, and he has never, ever spoken about what really happened to Suzanne on that highway. Which leaves us all with one final, chilling question. How many other victims, how many other stolen lives are secrets that he will take with him to his grave?